My stepmom couldn't have kids, so they kicked her out. Everyone said it was karma. But I remember when I was 6, running a high fever, and she pulled me on a handcart through a blizzard to get me to a hospital. When I was 5, my real mom hanged herself. Not long after, my grandma told my dad, "You're just going to have to settle. What young, single girl is going to want to marry you?" She sighed. The family can't afford another big wedding. My dad was a handsome man. He was slicking gel into his hair, and he smiled at his reflection. Who wants damaged goods? Just you wait and see. He brought a young girl home soon after. She had a round face, dark eyes, and a thick braid down her back. She looked around, shy but curious, and waved at me. "Hey there, little girl. Who are you?" I turned and ran. I ran to the kitchen and saw Grandma cooking while asking my dad in a low voice, "Does she know?" My dad waved his hand. "No. I told her Dana is my sister's daughter. Don't you let it slip." Grandma frowned. In a town this small, everyone knows everyone's business. How long can you keep that a secret? My dad picked up a piece of cooked beef from the cutting board and tossed it in his mouth, smiling confidently. "Once it's a done deal, you think she's gonna fly away?" Grandma nodded. "She's got no shame, running off with you without telling her parents. She's got it coming." My dad was smug. "It just means your son's got skills. Got a young wife without spending a dime. Just wait, she'll give you 3 healthy grandsons." My dad and Julie's wedding was a slapdash affair. Behind my back, Grandma told me, "Dana, don't you ever be like Julie. When your dad was courting your mom at 20, we had a proper wedding, all the traditions. Did we skimp on anything? But look at Julie. Your dad sweet-talked her. She ran off with him behind her parents' back, and she got nothing. Even the furniture is second-hand from the last wife." She hugged me. "Remember this, Dana. A man's words are nothing but lies." I thought about what my friend Lily had said earlier that day. My mom says a kid without a mom is like a weed, but a kid with a mom is a treasure. You're the weed. She pointed at the ground, then at herself. I'm the treasure. Lily's mom pulled her into a hug and gave her a couple of kisses, smiling wide. Dana, you ever heard the saying? A stepmom turns your dad against you. And there's nothing more wicked than a stepmother's heart. Thinking about all that, I shivered. That night, Julie's pretty, round face twisted into a monstrous green one in my dreams. After the wedding, Julie was actually pretty nice to me. Dad bought some bright yellow sponge cake for her to build up her nutrition, but she waved me over. Dana, come here. My dad stopped her and shooed me away. Dana, go see your grandma. He turned back to Julie. There are only a few pieces left. You eat them. Julie shot him a look. What kind of uncle are you? Even if you spoil your wife, you can't treat a child like that. She pressed a piece of cake into my hand, speaking softly. Eat slowly. Your auntie has plenty more. She was happy, thinking my dad was being stingy because he cared about her so much. That wasn't it at all. Grandma grumbled to my dad in private. Why do you keep giving Julie the meat? I don't even give that much to Dana. I save it all for you. My dad said. Isn't it so she'll give you a grandson? Once the baby comes, we'll have her working like a dog for the rest of her life. He wiped the grease from his mouth and smiled. That's how women are. Who really treats them like treasure? Winter came, and the world froze over. I came down with a high fever and couldn't stop shaking. Julie held me, constantly changing the cold towel on my forehead, pressing her own forehead against mine to check my temperature. In my daze, I kept calling out, Mommy, Mommy. Plink. A teardrop fell on my face. Julie said, hang in there, sweetie. We'll get you to the hospital right away. Her suggestion was met with opposition from the whole family. Grandpa said, I don't have money, and even if I did, I wouldn't waste it on a hospital. Grandma burned last year's holiday decorations to ash, mixed it into a bowl of black gunk, and muttered, drink this and you'll be fine. It's an old folk remedy that always works. My dad said, let's just wait and see. How are we supposed to get there in a blizzard like this? We can't. Julie stared at my dad for a moment, then paced around the room, threw on a raincoat and went out. A few minutes later, she came back pulling a flatbed cart, shouting anxiously, Mom, bring out some more blankets. We need to wrap Dana up tight. When my grandma just stood there, she stomped her foot in frustration. If this fever keeps up, Even if she pulls through, she could end up with brain damage. It could ruin her whole life. She turned to my dad. Vince, say something. If anything happens to Dana, what are we going to tell your sister? She was on the verge of tears. Vince, you're her uncle. Seeing my dad still wasn't moving, she dropped the cart, wrapped me in a quilt, and struggled to lift me onto it. Frantically, she threw another thick quilt over me, grabbed the handles and tried to pull. She couldn't move it. Grandpa was holding it back from behind. She yelled, Vince, help me please. My grandma started crying too. Let's just take her to the hospital. If it's too expensive, we can bring her back. Grandpa stammered, it's not just about the money, they're getting stricter now. If she were to pass, she wouldn't be in the way of you having a son. Julie said, Dana's not our child. What does that have to do with anything? My dad finally spoke. Julie, Dana is my daughter. From my first wife. Julie froze, completely deflated. Her grip on the cart handles loosened, and one end tipped up, nearly sending me tumbling to the ground. Suddenly, Grandma fell to her knees. Julie, I can see you're a good person. I've raised Dana since she was a baby. I can't bear to lose her. I'll go to the hospital with you. Julie snapped back to reality, let out a pained cry, and ran off into the blizzard. Grandpa quickly pulled the cart back to return it to our neighbor. Grandma, old and sick, managed to get me on her back. She didn't know where the hospital was, but she started walking toward town, stumbling with every step. The snow fell harder and harder, until everything was a sea of white. On Grandma's back, I could hear her wheezing for breath. Suddenly, she slipped, and we both tumbled into a small ditch by the river. Then I saw that familiar round face again. Julie had come back. She reached out, pulled me up with a grunt, and hoisted me onto her own back. My grandma followed behind, thanking her over and over. Julie didn't say a word the whole way. She carried me all the way to the hospital, took the silver bracelet from her wrist, and exchanged it for cash with the clerk at the window to pay for my admission. By my hospital bed, Grandma knelt before her again. Julie, from now on, I'll serve you like you're my own mother-in-law. Please, I'm begging you, don't get a divorce. Julie had been determined to leave. But when I woke up and stared at her with my big eyes, she remembered the time she held me and told me stories, the time I climbed a tree to pick fruit and saved it for her instead of eating it myself, the time my grandpa was willing to let me die just so he could have a grandson. And her heart softened. Just that one moment of weakness cost her half her life. She didn't divorce my dad, and she became known throughout the area as the wicked stepmother. Since she stayed, Julie told me to call her mom, saying I was her daughter from now on. At the dinner table, Julie forced me to eat meat. I couldn't stomach it and whined, it's too greasy. Grandma took the meat from my plate with a look of pity and passed it to my dad, saying, Dana's like me, she likes pickles and dried radishes. She's not a picky eater. But Julie blocked my dad's chopsticks as he reached for the last piece of meat. No. She has to eat it even if she doesn't want to. Dana's too thin, too small. That kid Mason always pulls her braids because he knows he can pick on her. She stared at me intently until I forced the meat down. Our neighbor got a goat, and she brought over a bowl of milk. She boiled it, let it cool, and told me to drink it. I cried as I drank it. How could anything in the world taste so gamey? His wife came by for a visit and saw me crying. She immediately spread the story all over the village, but with a twist. Julie won't let the kid eat meat, and the poor thing is just crying her eyes out. Grandpa was still worried I'd get in the way of him having a grandson, so he came up with a plan. We can spend a little money to get Dana a disability certificate, say she's mentally challenged. My grandma disagreed. If that gets out, how will Dana ever get married? My grandpa said, then we'll have her pretend to be deaf and mute. We'll say the high fever and the wrong medicine at the hospital caused it. Isn't there a kid like that in the next village? When it's time for her to get married, we'll just say she got better, that she can hear and speak. Who would complain then? No sooner said than done. He dragged me to the village doctor that same day. Dr. Wu looked me over and said coolly, this child looks perfectly fine to me. Nothing wrong with her. He went back to his writing. My grandpa quietly slipped him some cash in an envelope, smiling apologetically. Just do your old uncle a favor. When she gets a little brother, we'll have you over to celebrate. He crouched down and pretended to talk into my ear. I knew my part and acted like I couldn't hear him. Dr. Wu put down his pen, picked up the envelope, and fiddled with it. Then he suddenly asked, "What's 3 plus 5? I was really into learning math at the time. I completely forgot what Grandpa had told me to do and blurted out, 8. Grandpa backhanded me across the face. I stumbled and fell, breaking my front tooth on the floor. My mouth filled with blood, and tears streamed down my face from the pain. He roared, "Look at you, so smart. So clever." Grandpa angrily snatched the money back, glared at Dr. Wu, and left me there as he stormed home. Dr. Wu walked me home, and on the way we ran into Julie, who was looking for me. When Julie asked what happened, Dr. Wu sneered. "The government's rules aren't that strict. You're allowed to have your own kid. Stop tormenting Dana, or you'll get what's coming to you." Being scolded so harshly out of the blue, Julie's face went pale. She just stood there, watching Dr. Wu walk away coldly. I sobbed, "I'm gap-toothed now." Julie knelt and wiped my face with her handkerchief. It's okay. Your adult teeth will grow in." My 2 front teeth were broken, but Grandpa, worried about his pride, twisted the story and blamed it all on Julie. Julie spent her days working in the fields or knitting sweaters at home to earn extra money. She rarely socialized or gossiped, so she was completely unaware of the slander being thrown at her. Julie knitted sweaters mainly for me. We all lived together, so Grandpa controlled all the money from the crops, and he was a total cheapskate who never spent a penny. She was skilled with her hands and knitted to earn a little extra, using it to pay my school fees, buy notebooks and pencils, and even give me 30 or 50 cents for snacks every day. My grandma said, "Just fill a small flask with sugar water for her. What's the point of giving her money?" Julie said, "I don't want her to have to watch the other kids eat snacks while she has nothing. They'll look down on her." She was more serious about my studies than anyone. I wasn't allowed to watch TV until my homework was done, and when it was, she would take my workbook and check it carefully. My dad would rush her. "What's there to check? It doesn't matter if she does it or not. My mom is cooking the pig feed. Can't you go help her?" He was such a famous mama's boy, always worried about his mother, but he never lifted a finger himself. Julie ignored him and only gave me back the workbook after she was finished checking it. One day, Julie went into town to buy some things. With no one supervising me, I watched TV until 8 o'clock. When Julie got back, she was furious. My dad took the opportunity to make a snide comment. "You really think you're going to raise a valedictorian and live off her success? You'd be better off trying a little harder to get pregnant. Having a son is what really matters." He waved me away, but Julie said, "Stay right there. You're not sleeping until you finish." She turned on the desk lamp and sat beside me, continuing her knitting. I'd barely written 2 lines before I burst into tears. "It's already 8 o'clock. I'll never finish." Julie got up, soaked a towel in hot water, and gently wiped my tear-streaked face. "Go on, write. I'll stay with you. By the time the little hand on this clock goes around one more time, you'll be done." I wrote and wrote until it was all finished, and only then did Julie let me go to bed. Grandpa already had a grudge against Julie for not giving him a grandson. When he complained about her to others, he'd add that Julie wouldn't even let his granddaughter sleep, making the child stay up all night to work for her. I got first place on my final exams. When the principal announced my name on stage, Julie was so happy she nearly jumped out of her seat. I saw it all from the auditorium window, and my heart swelled with pride. But when I got home from school, I saw my maternal grandfather, who hadn't visited in a long time, confronting Julie, his spit flying in her face. "What is wrong with you? Dana gets first place, you go to the parent-teacher conference, and when someone asks if she's your daughter, you say, 'Her? Ugh, what daughter? That little jinx.'" My grandfather pulled me in front of her, his voice full of hatred. "She's only 8 years old. How could you wish death on her?" I burst into tears, terrified and confused. A crowd of onlookers gathered. Julie's face was beet red as she swore she never said such a thing. My grandfather pointed to Lily's mom in the crowd and shouted, "This kind lady here told me herself. I ran into her at the edge of the village just now." It all clicked. Lily's mom was jealous that I'd outshone her daughter. I lunged at her, wanting to hit her. "You're lying." The color drained from Julie's face, She had just taught Lily's mom a new knitting pattern to help her earn extra money, only to be stabbed in the back like this. She grabbed me and pulled me into a tight hug. My grandfather was still yelling and looked like he was about to hit Julie. I didn't understand why this was happening and just wailed. The wicked stepmother held me, her tears dripping onto my neck. My grandfather was stunned to see how close Julie and I were. The scene made him uncomfortable. He had only come to see me on a whim, and after that, he never came back. From that day on, Julie truly understood how hard it was to be a stepmother. Everyone misunderstands you. No one believes you wouldn't abuse a child that isn't yours. Life in the countryside was boring and repetitive. No one wanted to hear stories about a stepmother loving her child. What people loved to pass around were stories of stepmothers who abused their kids, who starved them, who beat them until their teeth broke. They would savor these sensational, tragic tales, sigh with false pity, and feel a little better about their own lives. Their own chaotic families seemed a bit more perfect in comparison. The old women who were just scolding their daughters-in-law a moment before would see the gossipy looks from others and immediately say, "Well, at least we don't have a cruel stepmother in our family." It was just Julie's bad luck that there were very few stepmothers in the entire county those years. Seeing that Lily couldn't catch up to me in school, her mom transferred her to the elementary school in town, bragging, "This is my own flesh and blood. You think someone like Julie would ever spend that kind of money?" Julie told me, "The teachers at the village school are very responsible. We're not transferring." I nodded. Lily boasted to me about her new school. "We have uniforms. If you don't wear one, you're not allowed in." She saw Julie making me a stool and pursed her lips. "Aunt Julie, we don't even have to bring stools for exams at my school. The classrooms are huge." Our little village school had limited resources. The desks were old, and 2 students shared a long bench. For final exams, students took turns bringing in large stools. Half the class would lean over the stools to take the test, which served to separate the seats and prevent cheating. Grandpa found an old, worm-eaten stool from somewhere in the house and said, "Just take this." But Julie quietly borrowed tools from our neighbor, a carpenter, chopped down a poplar tree behind our house, and spent 2 whole weeks making me a new stool. She delivered it to the school herself. She always said the same thing. Whatever the other kids have, Dana should have too. Lily's mom took every opportunity to be nasty. One day, she asked me to my face, "Do you remember how your real mom died?" A woman next to her perked up, drank pesticide, hanged herself, or jumped in the river. She sighed. "I moved here too late to know." She sounded as if my mother's suicide was a spectacular show she was sorry to have missed. I glared at Lily's mom. Her eyes darted around, and she spoke again in a conspiratorial whisper. "Humph, you little brat. You really think Julie treats you like a treasure? The second she has a son of her own, you'll be nothing to her." I shot back, "That's none of your business, you gossip." Lily's mom jumped up in anger, then a wicked smile spread across her face. "I'll tell you what. Your mom hanged herself because your dad was having an affair." "Humph, and who do you think that woman was? You're so close to her now. You're a heartless little thing, aren't you?" I froze. Could it be true that Julie was the reason my mother, whose face I could barely remember, but who had given me life, was dead? By the time I started middle school, Julie and my dad had been married for years, but she had never gotten pregnant. Grandpa picked fights with her constantly, once saying to her face, "You're just dead weight, completely useless." Around that time, my dad met a guy named Mr. Wallace and went into business with him. To everyone's surprise, he actually got rich. Grandpa, shedding his cheapskate image, invested all his money in my dad's business. He started acting like the lord of the manor, looking down his nose at everyone. The only time his confidence deflated was when people mentioned he didn't have a grandson. His face and shoulders would just sag. He made up his mind and paid for a distant relative to come visit. She was a plump auntie who was divorced and had a son. When this woman arrived, she was all over my grandpa, calling him uncle and sweet-talking him until he was grinning from ear to ear. Sometimes after a meal, the woman would sit by the door, picking her teeth and chatting with my grandpa. The way I see it, a woman who can't have a son isn't a real woman at all. Julie wouldn't lower herself to argue with her, and just ignored her. So I would secretly smear dishwater on the bottom of her bowl, or mix tiny pebbles into her rice to get revenge for Julie. One day, while Julie was out, my grandpa and that woman got my dad drunk and half carried, half pushed him into the bedroom. Then my grandpa sat by the door to make sure I didn't cause any trouble. The window was too high for me to reach. I looked around the house and found an old, broken piece of a gong. Clang, clang, clang. I started banging it and parading around the doorway. Grandpa tried to chase me, but he couldn't catch me and ended up tripping and falling. He screamed in frustration, which only made me bang louder. It was dinner time, and the neighbors, thinking something was wrong, came over with their bowls in hand to see what the commotion was. I dropped the gong and pushed on the bedroom door. The woman inside screeched in a grating voice, "What are you pushing for, you little brat?" It was my dad and mom's room. The crowd of onlookers instantly understood what was happening, and some of them laughed so hard they spat out their food. A tall young man reached up and pushed the window open. The woman came out, her face bright red with shame. When Julie got home and heard what happened, she called me a sly little devil. She laughed, but then her expression turned grim. I said, "Why don't you leave? I'm grown up now, you don't have to worry about me." She gave a sad smile. "And go where?" I ran away from an arranged marriage to come here in the first place. When a woman is out there alone, every man either wants to take advantage of you or stomp you down. I don't want to go back to that life, drifting around. It's too hard. Grandma fell ill and never recovered. On her deathbed, she said to Julie, "I was an orphan. These silver earrings are the only thing my mother gave me. I was going to be buried with them, but Julie, I want you to have them. Please don't think they're too shabby." Julie shook her head and gently put them back in Grandma's ears. "You wear them. With or without them, I'll always be good to the child." At Grandma's funeral, a rich, arrogant man grabbed my arm and tried to pull me into his lap, laughing to my dad, "Your little girl is turning into quite the looker." I couldn't get away, and my face turned red. My dad just chuckled, "Haha," and deliberately looked away. "Come on, Mr. Wallace, let's drink up. Here's to making us all rich." The man, Wallace, ran his hand down my back to my waist, gave it a squeeze, and started moving lower. Julie suddenly appeared and yanked me away. But he, emboldened by the alcohol, stood up and wrapped his arms around me again, pressing his face against mine with a sleazy grin. Someone in the crowd said, "Your wife can't take a joke." Someone else tried to smooth things over. "Mr. Wallace is just playing with the kid." My dad stood up and pulled at Julie. "What are you doing? Go fry up a couple more dishes." Julie couldn't pry his hands off me. In a panic, she grabbed a bowl of steaming hot tofu soup from the table and poured it all over him. Wallace howled like a stuck pig. My dad slapped Julie across the face right then and there. My dad filed for divorce. The truth was, as soon as he started making money with Wallace, he started playing around with other women. The one he was seeing got pregnant in a hurry and, through some means, was certain it was a boy. According to my dad and grandpa, Julie wasn't going to get a single penny of the family's money. I helped Julie fight them tooth and nail. I said, "I know about that last batch of pesticides you bought, Dad. They were all fake. And you're planning on buying an even cheaper fake batch soon. I know Grandpa often goes to see Mrs. Miller when her husband isn't home." I rattled off one dirty secret after another. My dad and Grandpa just stood there, mouths agape, speechless. They always pretended to be respectable men, and now I had exposed their filthiest secrets. Grandpa finally snapped out of it and raised his hand to hit me. But Julie was faster, swinging a stick and cracking it against him first. "Don't you touch her, you old bastard." Maybe my craziness was contagious, because Julie started screaming curses too. Things so foul they made my head spin. After our huge blow-up, my dad, furious, picked up a chair and smashed it in the doorway, shattering it to pieces. By then, villagers were starting to wander over to see the spectacle. Faced with two living, breathing shrews in broad daylight that they couldn't just make disappear, and with Grandpa desperate for a grandson and Dad obsessed with his reputation, they had no choice but to give in. I helped Julie pack her things and told her what Lily's mom had said. Julie's expression was complicated. "I thought you didn't know about that rumor." God. She had known about the lies people were spreading about her all this time and never said a word. The foolish woman. Julie explained, Dana, it was only after your mom died that a friend from my hometown introduced me to your dad where we were working. I found out later that your dad agreed to forget a debt the guy owed him in exchange for the introduction. She gave a sad smile. Dana, I have to go now. It'll be hard out there, but I have to try, even with nothing. Seeing my worry, she put on a cheerful face. I'm not a little girl anymore. I've been in arguments, I've been in fights. If I go out on my own now, maybe I'll be the one pushing other people around. I wrapped my arms around her neck. Mom, I want to be a shrew when I grow up, too. She let out a chuckle. This stepmom really hasn't taught her kid well. After kicking Julie out, Grandpa finally got his grandson. He was ecstatic, his face glowing with joy. He hadn't forgotten what happened with the doctor. Dressed in a new leather coat with a fur collar and an expensive cigarette dangling from his lips, he went to give Dr. Wu the celebratory red eggs. He was very grand about it, giving him a whole basketful, only the best for his golden grandson. He saw Dr. Wu was still wearing a shabby, old-fashioned jacket. He smiled, unzipped his leather coat, and put his hands on his hips, declaring generously, Dr. Wu, you should come to the baby's 1-month party. I'll have my son get you a leather coat. You know what they say, clothes make the man. Dr. Wu, ever composed, accepted the eggs and, as was custom, took $20 from his drawer to give to my grandpa. My grandpa waved it away. No, keep it. You can have that little bit of money. Poor you, stuck with that dead-end salary. His face beamed. Seriously, you should see my grandson. He's just perfect. Dr. Wu studied my grandpa's face for a long time without speaking. Then he said, Sir, you should probably go to a major hospital and get a checkup. My grandpa stormed off in a huff. What was wrong with that guy? A poor, pathetic man cursing people. He refused to believe he was sick. That night, he went home and ate big mouthfuls of meat and drank big bowls of wine. But sickness comes like a landslide, you can't just wish it away. My dad, the famous filial son, rushed his old man to the hospital and lavishly arranged for the best room. The doctors in town said they couldn't treat his illness. After some delay, Grandpa quickly withered away until he looked like a skeleton. Dad hired a van to take Grandpa to the provincial capital. The cost of treatment the doctors quoted sounded like an astronomical figure to him, like they were robbing him blind. The little van brought my grandpa back home. As it was about to leave, my grandpa clung to the door, refusing to let go, desperately trying to climb back in. It was as if he believed that if he could just get back in the van, there would still be hope for a cure. In the end, he was confined to his bed at home, gripped by the terror of death. Hearing the old man didn't have long to live, the mistress kindly brought the grandson to his bedside, but he just turned his head away in annoyance. The mistress stomped off with the child in a huff. It was raining and cold on the day of Grandpa's funeral. The burial ground was in a low-lying area and flooded. They trampled down the reeds so the son and grandson could kneel and bow their heads on the ground. The grandson was just learning to walk. His mother held him steady with one hand and carried an oil lamp for him with the other. Someone said, my uncle was a lucky man, having a grandson to carry the lamp for him at the end. My aunt and I, dressed in white mourning clothes, stood at a distance under an umbrella. My aunt suddenly said, you know, when you were born, Grandpa was really good to you. It had been years since there was a baby in the house. Every day after work he'd rush home, pick you up from the cradle, and tickle you with his beard. You cried all night, wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep. You got thinner every day. He posted signs on the road with folk prayers, but it didn't work. Someone told him an old goat's beard would help, so he spent 3 days searching the entire county to find one. He'd just gotten home when he heard from a fortune teller that releasing a catfish would work, so without even a sip of water, he went out again to find one. It was that day he got into an argument with some men over something. Their 2 sons were built like brick houses, and they just started swinging without a word. Beat your grandpa so bad he couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. Later, when they heard about the one-child policy, Grandpa started muttering all the time, what will we do without a grandson? We have to have a grandson. And gradually he stopped liking you. I looked at the new grave. The black ashes of the burnt paper money were scattered by the wind like black butterflies, quickly dampened by the rain and falling to the ground. The sharp, wailing sound of the funeral horn started up again. By the time I got into high school, Lily had been out of school for a long time. After transferring to the school in town, the long commute became too much for her. She started faking sickness, first for a week, then for a month, and then she just never went back. Lily's mom got addicted to mahjong and never really cared about her daughter's education. Lily's dad's business failed, leaving him in debt. He told her, "You have to come work with me. The creditors are getting aggressive." Lily's mom said, "I'm not healthy. How can I go out and work? You take Lily with you." And so, at 16, Lily went off to work. Julie came to see me at school. She passed me a container of braised pork she'd made through the school gate. "I opened a small shop nearby. I can come see you often now." The next time she came, I brought a chicken leg from the school cafeteria for us to share. The old security guard saw us talking through the gate, waved Julie into his booth, and we finally got to eat a proper meal together at his little square table. The school principal saw us and frowned. "Why are you letting parents in so casually?" He asked me sternly, "What class are you in? Don't you know the school rules?" The old guard bowed and wrung his hands, smiling apologetically. "This is my daughter and granddaughter. My daughter came to see me." "Oh," the principal said, a little skeptical, but he walked away. My fake grandpa waved his hand. "It's fine, keep eating. You can come in next time you visit the kid." His voice dropped. "My daughter, she has a hard time seeing her kid too. It breaks my heart watching you two every time, crying through the gate." Julie opened her own tailor shop. She also took the train to other cities to buy clothes and shoes wholesale to sell. She was warm and generous, her products were good, and her prices were fair. Business got better and better every day, and she even hired an assistant. Meanwhile, my dad's business, built on fake and shoddy goods, was found out by the villagers. People would rather take a long bus ride to the city to buy what they needed. His easy money started drying up. Someone praised Julie in front of him, and he couldn't stand it. He hired a guy with an iron pipe to wait for Julie on her way home. Julie was scared to death, but there was no way to avoid it. The road was deserted. Should she just run him over? She didn't want to go to jail. She told her young apprentice to hide in the van while she got out. The person holding the iron pipe was a skinny, baby-faced boy. It was his first time doing something like this, and his hands were shaking. Suddenly, Julie's apprentice, Kim, let out a scream, charged out, and started beating the boy senseless. It turned out the boy was Kim's ex-boyfriend. When Julie took Kim in, she had just had an abortion at a back alley clinic. The procedure was botched. They'd scraped her uterus and hadn't cleaned it out properly. Kim almost died. She collapsed on Julie's doorstep and Julie took her to the hospital, then let her stay and recover. Once she was better, Kim begged Julie to let her stay, and Julie paid her a monthly salary. Kim's parents had kicked her out to work when she was a teenager, only caring whether her monthly payments arrived on time. The boy was nice to her, and before she knew it, she was pregnant. When he heard the news, he got scared and ran off the same day. She went home with a big belly, but her parents were just ashamed of her. They shut the door in her face and didn't care if she lived or died. The boy eventually had a change of heart and came looking for her, but he'd run out of money and was desperate enough to become a hired thug, nearly going down a dark path. I said, "Mom, it's a good thing you did a good deed." Julie sighed. For a woman, one wrong step can either get you killed or land you in the worst kind of place, with no chance of ever getting back on your feet. She looked at the book in my hand and sighed again. "Dana, you're educated. You'll be able to support yourself. You're different from us. Thank God, you're different from us." I looked up at Kim's happy, busy figure, humming a song as she cut fabric. I quietly told Julie a line from the book. "We're all women, we share the same fate." After my dad hired a hitman, Julie had said, "Your father is so full of himself with his money now. He thinks he's above the law. If he keeps this up, he's going to get into serious trouble." Her words became a prophecy. My dad and his mistress never got married, and she was always fighting with him. She wasn't a very worldly woman, and when she got angry, she'd say anything. She'd tell him, "It's not like I have to stay with you, you know." She didn't know how deeply suspicious my dad was. On top of that, people in the village would say, "How come he couldn't have a kid for so many years, and then suddenly he has one?" Others would say about the mistress, "She's always been a loose woman. How could she ever be faithful?" My dad fooled around with women all the time, but he could never tolerate being cheated on. He always came home unannounced to catch his mistress off guard. One day he actually did. A man with a round face and big ears, who looked just like his son, was holding the boy in his arms, playing with him. My dad asked, "Who are you?" His tone was so aggressive that the man, still holding the child, started to walk away without a word. When my dad kicked Julie out years ago, he had smashed a chair. One of the chair legs had been lying by the wall ever since. He picked it up and swung it at the man. Just one swing. A nail sticking out of the leg went straight into the man's temple, and he died on the spot. The mistress came home with groceries to find my dad standing there in a daze, and her brother collapsed on the floor. My dad was sentenced to death. The mistress was so devastated by her brother's death that she took the child and left with nothing. I inherited all of my dad's money. I kept enough for living expenses and tuition, and donated the rest to the village elementary school. When I went to college, Julie moved her shop to the city and even bought a small apartment. The thought of being able to live with Julie filled me with happiness. When we went shopping, people would hear me call her mom and be amazed. "Wow, you look so young to have a daughter that big." Julie was only 16 years older than me, and her round face made her look even younger. I thought about it and said to her, "Maybe we should just call each other sisters?" Julie was at her work table making clothes. Hearing this, she picked up a ruler as if to tap me on the head. But I had my arguments ready. I said, "Hey, big sister, what's so great about being a mom? Once you're a mom, everyone thinks you're supposed to cook and clean for her, and they forget you need time to have fun too. It's like once a woman becomes a mom, she turns into another kind of creature. Her own desires, her hobbies. She has to put them all away. She's just a mom and nothing else." Julie put down what she was doing and listened with a smile as I continued. I said, "Being sisters is much more equal. You look out for me, I look out for you. Neither of us has to sacrifice ourselves for the other." I concluded you could call it. After many years, the stepmom became a sister. After that, Julie let me call her sister all day long. One day my sister asked me, "What's the character for a door with a line through it?" I said, "That's for latch." "How do you not know that word?" She just smiled and didn't say anything. It suddenly hit me and I jumped up. "Julie, you can't read. You checked my homework for all those years, and it turns out you can't even read." This woman was incredible. She sighed. Who would believe a woman my age is illiterate? But I was helping raise my younger brother since I was 3 or 4, cutting grass for the pigs. One time, I was washing clothes by the river and my brother fell in. I was terrified and pulled him out right away. But when we got home, he let it slip, and my dad dragged me back to the river and almost drowned me. He thought I did it on purpose. With a family like that, I never saw the inside of a school for a single day. I said, "It's okay. I'll teach you." I bought first-grade textbooks and taught her how to write, character by character. Julie was a good student, patiently practicing her strokes in the workbook, writing 200 characters a day without fail. Later, I enrolled her in continuing education classes for seniors. Julie was shocked. I've never even set foot in an elementary school. I was packing her school bag nearby and said, "Classmate Julie, from now on, you're not allowed to sleep until you finish your homework, okay?" With her skilled hands, Julie could replicate any knitting or crochet pattern just by looking at it once, which amazed all the women in her class. There was no shortage of single men pursuing her. One would bring her flowers, another would bring her breakfast, and one older man would send her voice messages every few days, singing her a song. I felt a surge of insecurity and asked her plaintively, "You're not going to run off with some strange man one day and leave me without even saying goodbye, are you?" "Julie," she cut off a voice message, silencing the man's, "can't fly out of this dazzling world. It turns out I'm just a mid-song." Then she stretched out comfortably on the sofa and yawned. Just as I thought she had fallen asleep, Julie said in the most loving tone, "Of course not, you silly girl." The end.